Welcome back to another episode of the Solo Scaled Podcast. I am here with Molly Gomez. Molly, thank you for being on the pod.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Yes, Molly, you and I were just talking a little bit ago about our deep fascination with the things of God, things of business, and just instantly connected. I think you and I were like, hey, we could probably have a long conversation, but I want to make sure that people who listen to this get a massive impact in a very short time. One of the things that I know you're really good at is the story framework of like really helping people find their signature story. And interestingly enough, I found that this is really hard for people. But before we jump into just sharing your kind of framework, can you walk us through how did you even get to starting your business?
Yes. Well, I always start it by saying long story short, because we don't have all the time. But my first career was being a news anchor and reporter. Most people are like, oh, it makes sense. I can hear that. You can't really take the voice out. And actually, this is just how I sound naturally for the most part. I actually have to
That's
talk
awesome.
up because of a really low voice just naturally. But I got into that industry to tell stories. And I was like, well, I mean, might as well. Everybody watches TV, or at least back then they did. And so I would share so many different types of stories. And I was actually a majority a morning reporter. And so, I mean, I did so much breaking news, fire coverage, being in the Pacific Northwest. Those are the stations that I worked in. And then a lot of fun stuff too. I tell people, even though there's a lot of doom and gloom, when there wasn't a story, I got to fly somebody's airplane, be in a hot air balloon, paraglide, eat a bunch of different food. Like it was just, there were some cool lived experience moments for sure. But I realized 2 years into the industry that it was very toxic. And I was like, is this what I like clawed my way in for? Like to just be doom and gloom. So I knew I wasn't going to be there forever. And actually, nearly 5 years into the industry, I ended up getting fired for inspiring other people to take on a health journey and just become a better version of themselves. I'm actually in the process of framing the Molly no longer works here anymore email, even though I was back in 2017, to put it up in my new office to be like as a reminder of thank you. What could have been a like really detrimental point was actually a launching pad. And so that was huge. And I knew after I got fired, I was not supposed to go work for anybody else. I just couldn't be a line item on a spreadsheet, if you will, of like, oh, she doesn't fit the mold, she's out. So I went into just various industries of entrepreneurship, started in network marketing, got a great experience there with leadership, sales skills, connecting with people. I have to say the right way, not spamming, but connecting, because that was my background, right?
Oh, for sure.
And then getting into the area of digital marketing. My now brother-in-law actually saw me at a conference. We connected, and he saw the gold in me, if you will, of like, hey, come over here and come get a taste of this industry, which led me to eventually, I was doing sales and marketing for him, helping coaches build and scale, led me to building my own because I saw the gap of all of these great businesses people want to put together, but they don't know how to talk about it. They don't have a story. They don't have the meat behind the message. Like there's no sticking point. And so really helping people do that well over a decade at this point. I mean, even before that, being on the news has been such a blessing to really just help people find that voice that is theirs, not a copycat, and definitely in today's time, not chat GPT. Like it is yours. You own it. God gave us the ability to speak. So start sharing, start speaking. And so being able to walk people through different frameworks that I have to really help them discover what that is. And then I like to say when I work with private clients too, of just pulling out the gold of they don't think that part matters, but it actually does. So it's just so cool to be able to see that. And yeah, I'll just take a pause there because we could go on and on when it
Yeah.
comes to
So,
stories.
so why do you think it's so hard for people to find that story? Like there's so many times they're just confused or conflicted and they're like, is it this? Is it this? Is it that? Especially when it comes to coaches building offers. Like I want to show all of me, but then it becomes this like goop of hot mess. Why is that?
I love that you said goop because it really is. It can feel that way, right? It can really feel like, ugh, like what is this thing? And actually, at the end, I was just thinking about this. I did put something together that is free downloadable. That is my 3-pillar worksheet to work through. I call the spaghetti bowl of mess in our mind because we're conflating and we're putting all these stories from all different life experiences together in one pot, expecting it to make sense and to come out clear. when really there's different stories for different times. And then also, what do you want to be known for? And getting clear. And the news really helped me boil things down to 30, 60, 90 seconds. One of my most popular courses that I've had for years, it's called the Signature Soundbite Method, where people can actually learn how to share their story in 30, 60, 90 seconds. Because I had to do that in the news. 6 hours, for example, of information distilled into 30, 60, 90 seconds. And we can do the same for your decades of life experience. So it's being really strategic on what's the point of this story? Where are you leading them, especially in today's world? And since I work with a lot of business owners or even just ministry leaders too, who really want to build a stronger brand and presence, it's like, where are you leading them after? Because otherwise they're going to keep scrolling. But we want to get them to stop to be able to consume something that is good. And your lived experience should have a higher demand and market authority.
Yeah. Okay. So when you start to do that little signature, that pivot for them where it's like, oh man, I'm starting to get clarity. How does that happen? What's kind of your framework that you start walking people through to get that clarity?
I'll tell you the simplest one just to break down in an acronym because it has definitely expanded over the years and it depends on who I'm working with, right? I mean, a lot of business owners that I work with are high caliber women that already have multiple six, seven figure plus businesses that they haven't used their story really up until now. And they haven't used their voice in a way to create an increase in demand and market authority. Their lived experience is what people actually would pay more for because they want to be around that. It's not just the strategy. But the strategy that I want to give you is an acronym called STORY. And the STORY framework is something super simple. Number one, you have to set the stage. Like, who are you speaking to? And a lot of people actually get stumped here because they want to talk to everyone. But as you probably know, as a business owner and a former ministry leader, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you talk to everyone, you're not going to talk to anybody. You have to zone
Yeah.
in to speak to the heart of somebody. Then T is the tension. You got to go into the negative. Why? Because most people's brains are like, here's my problem. Here's my problem. Here's my problem. Start with the biggest problem they have. And then the STO, the outcome and overcome. This is where now you can start sharing some lived experience that you've had. Who you're speaking to, you've already set that stage. The tension, the turning point of like, okay, this is the problem. But now we're turning the corner of like, look, I've gone through it too. I have been where you are. But what I have found is, and now you're going into the solution. The solution. So we got the S, setting the stage, the T, the tension and turning point, the O, outcome and overcome, the R, the revelation and realization. So this is where the turning point is of, hey, if you're going through this and you want a solution, listen up. Listen up. Here's what you need. And then you're guiding them somewhere. The why in the story is basically your next steps. Like, here's what you're going to do. In a very short phrase that usually, I mean, you take so much lived experience when my clients usually, if I do this privately as well, they either can go through it on a worksheet or they want to do stuff privately to really pull stuff out. I mean, they're dumping on me. They're like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, don't be, because I have a trained ear where I want to listen to pick up the stuff that they're dropping. But we distill it down with so many decades of experience down to something that may take you 30 seconds to say. And like now
Yeah.
they're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And you can add on to that if you want with different examples that compare with that. But now people know what you do, who you are, who you serve in 30 seconds. And what a great feeling that is.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was on a podcast a couple months back, I was a guest, and the host, we were talking, and he was like, "How did you get involved in what you're doing now? And how did you go from ministry to business?" And I'm sharing all this stuff, and he said something to me that even to this day I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen that." No matter how many times I've coached people through their own story, right? And he was like, "Oh, you love to amplify other people's voices," and I'm like, yes, yes, I do. I was like, no one's ever put that in words, but I do. And then I went to my business partner and I said, dude, when I say this about me, what comes out? And he's like, oh man, dude, that's totally you. And I was like, awesome. So even on LinkedIn, I started changing some things a little bit just to show them like, this is who I am. And I asked that because I know that our story tends to evolve, or who we are tend to evolve. And one of the biggest struggles most people have is when they're setting the stage or trying to share the stories, to pick which ones should they pick. So how do you get people to almost be like, hey, I understand everything to you feels important, but how do you get them to pick like, this is the main thing? Because it sets the stage for everything else.
Yes. No, this is a great question. And this goes back to, and I'm sure we'll be able to link it somewhere in the show notes for my like free downloadable called the 3 pillar exercise. And I
Yeah.
actually, as much as you can go through it on your own, I love also just seeing people light up and the light bulbs go off when I used to walk people through it.
Yeah.
And so what this does, and you could even, if somebody really wants to take notes, you can pick it up right here, right now. I'll give it to you in like 60 seconds. Get a spreadsheet. You're going to pick 3 themes. These are the 3 themes you want people to know you for when they come to your content. One of those being business. So, for example, it could be time freedom, faith, and empowerment, or something like that. Now, within those themes, what are the topics that you can talk about? And give yourself like 5 to 10 minutes per section to just brain dump and dump, dump, dump on it. Then from there, the third piece is with those topics, write 2 bullet points that you can speak on when it comes to that topic, just 2. Because when you keep it to 2, then you can keep it clear and then drive them somewhere afterwards. If you keep it to 3 or 4 or 5, I've seen people ramble on and then it gets lost in translation.
Yeah.
When you do this, you know what stories fit in where, depending on what kind of content you want to put out, what you can speak about. And this becomes an evergreen document where you can actually keep adding to this over time. When I used to walk clients through this, it would be maybe, I mean, if in 30 minutes, for example, 25, 30 minutes, we wouldn't spend that long, but if they did, and they would come back to me, they have like 80 topics. And then like tell them it's like a bank account. Anytime you gotta like deposit before you withdraw, right? So now when they even if they finished all those topics, they could go back and do it again and add extra wisdom. So it never ends, but you get clarity. So when you're like, what content am I putting out, or what am batch recording for all those who put a lot of content out and they want to do multiple videos in one day, you can go to this sheet, boom, boom, boom. I know what I want to talk about when, and I can get right to the point. That has been a game changer for so many people so they can make sense of what's going on up here and also in here of what they want to get out.
Yeah. So if I heard you correctly, there's 3 buckets. The first bucket is business, the second bucket's personal, and then the third one's like the topics within each of the themes of those buckets. Or did
Yeah,
I miss
usually
one of
there's a
them?
business bucket, a personal bucket, and then maybe like a hobby or something that you really like to talk about type of a bucket. Yeah, so you get
Got it.
all different facets of you. So it's not just a business commercial 24/7.
Okay. Okay. So people do that. It sounds like they get immense clarity after that. And they're, all right, I'm gonna go share that. Is there any time that you look at that and you be like, hey, you got 80 topics here, 50 of these, it doesn't enhance the brand that you're trying to grow. Cut those. How does that work?
That is a great question because usually I'll go through them if we get a chance to. And I'm like, what are the top ones that really resonate where you want to go with right now based on your goals? And then from there, the other ones kind of weed out, but it just gives them a place to brain dump, which is almost like as equally as important because otherwise stuff is swirling around. And if you don't dump what's out of your brain, just like if you have a bucket full of water, you can't add more water in if it's full. You got to dump it out and then allow it to be refilled, right? Your brain's the same way. So yes, there's as you elevate with this kind of exercise, people that I work with now, because they're already in that elevated stage, it's like we do go line by line of like, yep, nope, that's not going to fit. That's not going to fit. That's not going to fit. Yes, this may feel like it won't fit, but this will add more connection and people that can resonate with you because when I work with people that are at a more successful level, the resonating part gets lost because they're like, oh, like you don't understand how I feel where I'm at. Oh, they did at one point. So don't forget that part of that story. Put that in there so they can see what's possible. And they're seeing that right now with their lived experience and where they're currently at, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Is it because like the higher they go, the more that they have to manage other people's expectations that they feel like they can't be their authentic self or their total self? That's why they
It's
lose those
that.
things that they
It's
resonate?
exactly that. And there's a, if I say too much, is somebody going to use this against me? There's a fear
Mm,
of like, you get so high, then somebody can use it against you somehow because people are always out there. I call it trolling. They're always out there trying to find some way to poke the hole in the boat in the balloon and have everything fail. If you take an offensive approach, and I'll just be honest, I'll give a really vulnerable story of an offensive approach of like, if this were to be found out, it would have been a defensive approach. It probably would have crumbled things. But I took an offensive approach of in 2020, I believe it was 2022, is when I publicly came out. And a year before then, I actually stopped smoking marijuana. And I smoked marijuana for like 10 years. I told myself I needed to come down after work and it made me creative, all the whatevers, right? It was doing more harm than good, obviously. Well, I quit and then for a whole year didn't say anything. And then the beginning of 2022, I believe the Lord's like, you need to share this. And I was like, No way. You're crazy. And at the time, I was a co-founder of a big kingdom minded membership and people all over the world. And that was how my brand was building. I was like, I'm going to get canceled. Okay. And he's like, just do it. So I put it out there. It's my only TikTok to go viral. Not that I really like that doesn't matter to me. It could be 10 people.
Yeah.
But in the comments, though, so much healing of like that I put down the joint. This is for me. I need to walk away. This has been like something, this is confirmation for me. And if it would have been a defensive approach, it would have just been horrible. It would have just been horrible. So that was my experience of I was terrified, didn't know what was going to happen. But when I did it, so much healing happened for me to just get rid of that shame and to let other people know, you know what? I know on the outside probably doesn't look like I did something like that, but I did. And we all have those. We all have those. So even stuff like that, where you feel like if the world knew, I would be canceled. Probably not. They actually probably want to know that story and how you've overcome it and pushed through because that gives them hope.
Man, you just threw a bunch of fire nuggets, and I'm like, we could go like 10 different directions here.
Sorry.
But no, this is really good because I love the vulnerability piece, and I love that you went on the offensive. A big question that I always try to answer for people, and I'm curious what your thoughts are, is when do you go in the offensive? So, for example, you waited about a year, like you've gotten healing, you kind of recovered, any relapse, like you went through all that. So you're like out of the hill, per se, versus other people might be like, hey, I'm going to announce it day one of my story and we'll see what happens. Where do you find the balance or the appropriate approach for people as they want to go on the offensive? Would you say, hey, let's go day one, share it, or like, let's wait a little bit? What do you think?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. I would say ask the Holy Spirit. Ask the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit because like for me, like I've done other things where like, maybe a few days out of it, like I'm ready to share, boom. But he's really got a hold of my heart of like, did I say it's time to share? Is it ready?
Mm.
Because he knows the deeper healing that needs to take place. And you know what? Even if a relapse happens of some sort, it's okay. Like we have grace, there is mercy, there is forgiveness, and there's no shame in Jesus. So it's like we get to release that. And I actually heard something really powerful that I have to just add on to that in a Bible study that I'm in at my church, where a lady goes, whenever the Satan tries to come in at me of like guilting me, she's like, you know what? I have forgiveness and you don't. Like you will never be forgiven. You will never have the mercy and grace of God, but I do. So you get to go away. And I'm like, talk about getting him to be silent. She's like, and every time he goes away, I don't hear him anymore. And I'm like, I'm sure because like you just shut him down. And so I love that approach because it's an aggressive approach, but it's like, I don't want him coming through my front door and wrecking my thoughts, So as far as like when to share, ask the Holy Spirit. And if he's leading you to share, then do it. And don't be so released of the expectation of who likes it, who shares it, who says whatever. And even if you get what I call trolls in the comments, the ones that are the negative ones that are trying to, poke holes, those people are on assignment by the enemy to get you to doubt, to get you to be like, oh, this is a bad idea. Just be obedient and, whatever happens, God's going to give you the grace for it and the plan for it. And so, it really just depends on where he leads you is the long story short.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's helpful for people to feel like there's not a formula, and it's best to say like, look, Lord, what do you think? Is right now the time?
Mhm.
A lot of times I'm like, when I feel like I'm not sure what the Holy Spirit's telling me, I have godly counsel, godly wisdom,
Yes.
mentors, coaches, right? That I'm like,
Very
hey, what
true.
do you think about this right now? Should I do this now? Should I do that? And it's been helpful to just process those things with them.
So true. Yeah, there's a lot of people that I'm mentoring right now where it's just out of like God just called me to just pour into them. And there's so much wisdom in godly counsel. So I'm so glad that you brought that up because it's like he does place people around you where you can ask because you know where their submission lies and you know where they're getting fed as well. So that's a great also, another place to ask in case you don't know.
Yeah. So Molly, you help people in many ways create their personal brand, find their unique story. I'm assuming you've grown your personal brand, your story. Walk through people who listen to this podcast are a lot of expert-led business owners who
Mhm.
are just trying to figure out how to grow their business in 2026 with the age of AI, with everybody and their mom telling them this is the way to grow. And it doesn't seem to fit them. And they're just stuck. And they're like, I don't know how to grow my business. What's worked for you that you're like, this has been really simple and really freeing to help you?
Yes, I love that you said simple because the world can get things really complicated. And you know what? When it comes to AI, I actually use a lot of AI in my business, but I don't let it take over my voice. I feed it. I'm like, okay, here's what I know. And I use it as an engine to be a good steward and to be able to kind of compound some time in other areas. But I actually have to walk through a lot of my clients who pay me good money to work with me privately and they like run their voice through chat and then they use it as their own. I was like you need to delete that out. Like you need to get rid of it. The
Yeah.
biggest thing for 2026 to answer your question, it's to find your voice. It really is. There's actually articles coming out now that even in the corporate sector, they are prioritizing storytelling. And if you even just
Mhm.
take a look at like what's happening around us, the amount of streaming apps that are out there, the amount of stories we love to go watch with other people, why aren't we telling our own? Because people are watching content online that is far more ridiculous and wasteful, in my opinion, of like, that is such a waste of time. But hey, it's for somebody, right? They need to hear your story, your lived experience. So for people who are elevated business owners that maybe already have some success looking for the next strategy, it's actually peeling back. It's not the strategy you need, it's your voice. And taking that, refining that voice to be able to create a higher market demand so people can come to you to hear from your lived experience. And so a lot of people get stuck on, I need to provide this strategy and this and that. And that's what people are paying for. But people will actually pay you more for deeper frameworks, for more proximity, for more of like your thought process and being in your think tank, whether it's in an inner circle form or a private form or whatever it is, in order to move faster. And what I've really discovered is the more I help business owners actually discover their voice and use their business as a place of discipleship for other people to go deeper, everybody wins. Because strategy will fall through the cracks if you don't have the foundation right. And so a lot of people are going to all of these things like ChatGPT and other people. They're just like, oh, I see you have what I want, but they're not actually using discernment. When really the word is going to give you everything you need because chances are it's starting a peer renewal of your mind, what you believe in your heart, and then where does that flow out of? It's a lot, even for people that have like 8, 9 figure businesses. I see a lot in them too, because it's just, there's different levels, right? Of like, am I ready for this? Am I ready for this? Like, what is this next thing? It always comes back to like what actually matters most. We want to serve people. Let's serve people on an inner level, which is going to lock in the external level with the strategy to really get them to serve who they're meant to serve. And their voice is a huge part of that.
And to piggyback on something you said earlier that I don't want people to miss is that when you do find your voice, you actually find the people that you're talking to. And that's
Yes.
why you're able to elevate because you're like, I'm talking to this person. They get what I'm trying to say. They understand me and they feel seen and known because they're like, oh, yeah, that's me. Or that used to be me. I want to connect with this person. And that's the through line you got there.
That is the through line. And then the higher you go, if you're really looking for whether it's a higher level connections for the last, I don't know, maybe like 8, 10 plus years. I don't even know how long at this point, to be honest. I add new appointments, networking appointments in my calendar every week. I'm constantly networking with people every week. That's put me in high caliber inner circles, high caliber masterminds in front of the right people, incredible referral partners. You know, I tell people about 85% of my business is referrals. People refer to me because of the networking I've done, built that rapport of just being a good human being and knowing how we can serve each other and knowing like, I know I can help your people when it comes to refining their voice because I know that's a lock for so many. Like they feel like, can I really share who I am? Can I really do this? And I mean, from news to now, I tell people, I'm like, God literally anointed me for this. Like, I didn't choose it. He brought me on that path, and here we are. But networking is a huge part of that, where people are just waiting for people to come to their post, come like, and then maybe it'll be it. That's low hanging fruit. You
Yeah.
go out there and find the people who'd be your ideal client, or maybe have the networks that are ideal for you and watch that fruit multiply.
Yeah. From a biblical standpoint, I always tell people if you look at Jesus, Jesus went out and found his disciples. It's not like the disciples were like, oh, Jesus, come. No, like Jesus said, come and follow me. He went to do it. And many times I tell business owners, especially startup coaches, they're like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, you got to go out there. You got to make the calls. You got to network. I love that you're doing networking. I know a lot of people get networking wrong. They think it's pretty much just like a 60-minute sales pitch or like 1 minute sales pitch to every person they meet. What do you do to make it that networking is so powerful and that people are like, oh, I want to refer people back to Molly?
Well, first of all, it's like when I get on that call, I instantly jump in the driver's seat of like, thank you so much for taking the time. I've loved what I've seen so far. And I have done a little bit of due diligence of a website, a LinkedIn profile, something, right? Where I can see where they're at to see if there's any synergy. And if there is, then I'm complimenting them. Then I was like, I would love to hear your story. Now I've got it to the point where I can get this within a 30-minute call, no problem. Even if somebody shares for like 15 to 20 minutes. That used to freak me out because I'm like, I got no time to share anything. If you're taking up 20 minutes, I have a 30-minute call. But I've learned to really just, you have to get down to like what matters most. And as they're sharing with you, you're listening and learning possibly where you can serve them because people will tell on themselves. You have to become a better listener, not a better talker in when it comes to networking for sure. Now, the biggest part of this is leading the conversation. So when they're sharing their story and they're kind of done, you're touching back on, I love that you said this. I love that you're doing that. Like, this is really great. So they know that you actually heard them rather than you just jumping into what you're doing. Now, if it leads into like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy that you said that because, like, you know, how I help people, that really aligns because, like, we're really aligned in this area or whatever it may be. And you get better by doing more of these, by the way, but leading the conversation. Here's the biggest piece of advice I can give to somebody. You let them go first, and then you compliment them on what they said. Thank you so much for sharing. Then when you share, you got to be like, and this goes back to that signature story, you got to be like a sniper with it. And if you can get it in like 30 to 60, if you can get that within 60 seconds and have your share maybe be under 3 minutes, I know that sounds crazy for most, but you can do it. I've seen the impossible happen with many
Yeah.
people. They're going to be like blown away of like, I need to know more. Like this person's clear, they're confident. Like I need to know more. And so when you're sharing something, you want to frame it back to them because maybe this will be for somebody, maybe this will be for them or somebody that they know. So you're sharing what you do, that signature story, the framework we walked through earlier. But the last piece, write this down, pause this. Like you want this phrase. This phrase has brought me so much business and has been able to close. I've been able to close personally, but then also just with investments, like probably multiple seven figures in sales with this. And I teach people this. Listen, I'm not sure if that resonates with you or someone that you may know, but if it does, I would love to send you more information. That phrase right there is not a hard pitch. It's comfortable, it's inviting, and it gets them to think, do I resonate? And then I ask them, or maybe somebody that you know. So now they're thinking, well, I know a handful of people that might need what you have. And then I'm saying, and if that resonates, I'd love to send you more information. And most of the time I get a yes. But even if
Hmm.
I don't, totally fine. All good, no worries. Like, I'm so glad we had time to be on the call today. Who's a great referral for you? So and so, da 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 da. Guess what they're gonna ask me? Who's a great referral for me? Oh, so and so, da 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 da. And if that resonates with you or somebody that you may know, I'm happy to send more information. I do it again. And they're like, yeah, go ahead and send me more information. Almost like a 9.5 out of 10
Yeah.
because
That's
it's
awesome.
not so aggressive. It's so inviting. So that right there, when you can follow that, I know I threw a lot at you, but just go back, watch it again, and write it down because it will be gold for you. And then you'll be more confident when it comes to your networking calls.
Yeah. Well, and when I hear about the networking calls that you're initially serving them, you're like, just tell me what you do, tell me who you are, tell me your story, and
Yes.
you're finding the connecting points. And if they connect well with you, great. If not, then you can pivot them to something else.
Mhm.
But you're serving them, which is a huge aspect to it, right?
Yes, and then typically because I have such a big network and you get to this point because I've been doing this for so long, you guys,
Yeah.
I'm always like, Lord, who can I connect them with? And so I want to know because if I can make a great connection, amazing. And that's led to amazing referral commissions. It's led to no commissions. It's just led to great kingdom connections or just connections otherwise. All the
Yeah.
above, it feels great. And you know who sees it? God sees it. And you know who appreciates it? They do. And they're going to remember how they felt when they're on that call with you and it's going to set you apart from everyone else. And so I have been able to land some of my biggest affiliate partners, referral partners, investment partners, clients. I tell people I even met my husband through networking because I was speaking at an event. His brother was speaking at the event, my husband, a media guy, and we met. And it was because of networking I even got to that event. So I'm like, my whole life is about networking. I'm living proof.
I love it. I love it. Now I need to meet your husband. Like, bro, you got network, dude. Like, hook, line, and sinker. That's
True.
awesome.
Yes.
Molly, as we wrap up the conversation here, and you and I could talk for a long time. I think we've been in this space for a really long time and chit chat and glean wisdom from each other. There is something that I'm doing personally, with this podcast is that I'm doing a trend report. So I'm asking the same 5 questions to every single
Mm,
individual, every entrepreneur that's been on here. Same 5 questions. I'm going to throw them out to you. I'm going to try really hard not to respond. I might ask a follow-up question, but I'm just going to give you 30 seconds for each question, however you
great.
want to answer, and we'll go from there. So let me just grab them here to make sure. Okay, question number 1 is, what's something in your business you're experimenting with right now?
Mm. Adding more discipleship structure rather than strategy structure. Like, how can you
Okay.
disciple people through what you do rather than just tacking on more strategy? And so seeing that being really fruitful, but it's also different. I've never seen anybody else do it in the marketplace. So, yeah, that is something that I'm trying at this point.
I'm going to ask you about that later. So, question number 2, which part of your business feels the most influx, or you're like, I need to really work on this area?
I'm in that delegation phase where it's like I can handle a lot. I have a large capacity. And so I actually just sent a whole write up to the team that I have today of like, here's what I'm hiring out. Like, here you go. And hopefully, you guys can do it. If not, I have to find other people. That's a really big step for me. But it's also going to be amazing when we get the right people in place. So that is yes, that a bit tender.
Yes, dude, that is the hardest thing. I just called you dude, but it's the hardest thing to delegate, especially when it's been your baby for so long.
Yes,
You're
I've
like, they're going
delegated
to mess this
before, but
up.
this is a whole nother level of delegation and just it's such more of an intimate build this time around. Because this is my second consulting business. God actually had me shut down the first completely. I was in a totally different season for 5 years, reopen this, and it is a whole nother build, but we just get to trust him with it. So praise God.
Sweet. All right, question number 3, what's a goal you're building toward this year that you're really excited about?
I'm going to say this, and I know for some believers, just be open minded to what I have to say with this. My first 6-figure month. And why that matters, it's not the money, it's the giving on the end of it, because I have a 7-figure giving goal over time, and that
Yeah.
pours back into the kingdom. So, my first 6-figure month, so I can have a bigger giving goal and just keep chipping away at that 7-figure giving goal. So, that is and then by Q1, so this quarter, as we record this, that
Ooh.
is the goal.
That's a nice little stretch goal there. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna be checking in and seeing how that's going. Question number 4: where do you see the coaching industry shifting, and how are you preparing for it?
Ooh, that's such a good question. And I feel like my answer might be different than most because a lot of coaches, I feel like chat GPT and using AI and bringing all that in. And there's space for that. Don't get me wrong. There's some good space for that to create leverage. But ultimately, it's back to your first question when you're like, what are you trying out now? And I'm like, discipleship, like bringing that in, like discipleship strategy, if you will, or rather than worldly strategy. I can't even remember how I phrased it, but like really focusing in on that because if they become that disciple and then disciple others, we're fulfilling the Great Commission through the
Yeah.
marketplace, right? So that to me is where I can see it going. And I mean, I'm sure there might be other people doing it, but maybe God's starting with me. I don't know. Like, it's just, I feel like that's going to catch on fire because it's going to produce real fruit and focused fruit on Him rather than the worldly stuff.
So good. All right, last question. What's the legacy that you want to leave behind?
The legacy question. That's so good. A really big focus for me right now, which pours into, I would say it pours into legacy is so as we're recording this, I turned 36 this year in 2026. My business is my baby. It's just my husband and I, we haven't had kids yet. A lot of people ask us, they're like, do you even want kids? Like, what's up? And I'm like, of course I do. It's just apparently not the time. And not we haven't been trying, but it's just we just know it's not the time yet. So I'm building the things that God's putting in my hands, stewarding what's in my hands in such a way so I can keep family, raising our kids, making time for the people who need it around me, making that thing, building the kingdom. So I'm not chained to this business that I've built. I do have to steward it, but I have time for things that matter most. And what matters most are people and the people in my life. And especially when we start having a family. And that to me is legacy. So it's not some big philanthropic thing. It's like the bloodline. It's have the purest bloodline that we can create because like that matters. And so that is, I guess, my best legacy answer at this point.
Yeah. What's cool about that is that for a long time in most Christian circles in the last, the 20th century, we've done a pretty poor job on talking about wealth generation and leaving a financial legacy for people. We talk a lot about spiritual legacy, and I'm like, praise God, we need a spiritual legacy.
Yes.
Financial legacy, it's always been like, oh, that's, demonic, or like, we just got to give everything away. And it's just like, well, the book of Proverbs talks a lot about wealth, and I'm being
Yes.
really clear I'm being really clear to distinguish between prosperity gospel and like wealth generation. And
Yes.
we're talking here about wealth generation of just like, hey, what do we leave behind to our kids, our friends, our loved ones? That's going to matter so much more. So I love how you just framed that. You're like, I am trying to set everything up for the future, which is great. Molly, for those who are listening to this and they're like, I really like Molly and I need a signature story and I need help. What's the best way they could connect with you?
I'm sure we'll have all the links in the show notes. I mean, from
Yes.
website on social media. I'm such a social person. If you couldn't tell by the networking splurge that what I just shared, like honestly, I love having conversations. And that's part of the hard part of delegating of like eventually somebody else is gonna have to take some stuff over. But I love connecting with people. So right now it's me. So feel free on, I mean, Instagram, I'm on a lot. And that's probably one I'm on the most, but I check them all the time. I get all the notifications. And so I would love to hear A, like what stood out to you in this episode? And then B, why signature story and why now? Like, why something now? And I have some really exciting things that are coming up, especially for people who are high caliber business owners looking for like an inner circle of themselves. I have something March 5th called the Aligned and Assigned Inner Circle that's going to be launching that pretty much has almost everything that we talked about here today, but in a way deeper setting to really understand how you can become that devoted disciple and disciple other people, how to really be able to create a higher market demand and authority with your lived experience in your story, like really set above the noise, way above the noise, so you can really connect those people you're meant to connect with, and so much more that comes into stewardship. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to go. I love talking about stewardship and so many areas that people neglect because they're chasing the strategy, and the strategy will only get you so far. It will only get you so far. And it's gotten people to a great point, but now there's other things that we got to fortify in order to really forge forward. So, yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn. I mean, my email will be there. You can connect me anywhere. And I would love to be able to just hear what stood out and why now. That's a really big question because you have to be willing to invest the time, invest resources to really to press in. And you'll be glad that you did because, hey, we have this gift called time. Let's use it well. Let's steward it well so you can take what God's given you to steward and amplify it. Just like you said earlier, amplifying in a very big way.
Molly, thank you so much for that. And thank you for that piece of encouragement because there's going to be so many people who need what you have. And I look forward to seeing March 5th, how it grows. And you hit your Q1 goal too. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. Molly, thank you so much for that. And again, for those who are listening, if you want to reach out to Molly, all that stuff is going to be in the show notes. The lead magnet that she referred to, all her handles to connect with her, it's going to be all there on the show notes. Go connect with Molly. Molly, thank you so much. You've been a great pleasure to talk to.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. This has been so fun.
Yeah.